Hey everyone, this is Dr. Jessica Nerren. I am the interim faculty director over at SSD, our accommodations office for CSUSB. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about note-taking as an accommodation from the faculty perspective. So I taught here for 6 years before I joined the SSD team. And a lot of times I had note-taking in my classes in various ways, right? So questions that we see a lot of the time regarding note taking sometimes look like this. Do I have to find a note taker myself? What if I can't find a note taker myself? Who finds the note taker? How do I know the notes are any good? Do I provide the notes myself after they're taken? What's the process for your note taking? And more. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through a little bit of what the note-taking accommodation looks like from the faculty perspective. And then any additional questions you might have, you can always reach out to me as well. And we can talk more about it as it relates to your unique class. My email is jessica.nerren@csusb.edu. And I can walk you through just about any question you might have as it relates to this. So here are a couple of things to think about. So note-taking is a common accommodation, right? And every time someone has a note-taking accommodation, the reasons behind it might be wildly different. It might be physical, mental, developmental, neurodivergent, cognitive, something related to a temporary disability, anything under the sun. So we can never presuppose why that person has that accommodation, but to rather, engage in this trusting collaboration that we can have together about no accommodation is assigned lightly. Here at SSD, we engage in an interactive process to find out what it is that a student is struggling to access, and we assign accommodations according to functional limitations to access. Okay, so it's not a quick slapdash operation here. It's done with a lot of care and thought and deliberation in accordance with all of the guiding policy and laws that pertain to our office. With that, when you get a note-taking accommodation, we may actually already reach out to students before your class even opens for the term through the email list from the roster from the registrar. If we don't find a note taker that way, we by the time your class opens, we may reach out to you at the start of one of your early classes, maybe week one. You might see us outside your door when you get to your class, and we might say something to you such as, hey, would it be okay if we recruit note takers for just a minute or two of your time? Right. And it might be a really busy day, or there might be other dynamics happening. We have faculty members say, hey, can you come back in 10 minutes? Or yeah, but can you come back after a break? A lot of faculty say, of course. Oh my gosh, what a relief. I'm so glad to know that you're going to help me with this. Right. But we'll work with you there too, because your class is yours and yours alone. All right. So what happens next? We typically would come in, we would do a little spiel about that a note taker who volunteers also gets priority registration for their service into the class. And not only that, the note taker really is kind of in a peer supported environment to maybe take slightly better notes than they might have without knowing that they were also providing a service to another person in the room. The peer note taker may never know who that person is, right? Because the laws of confidentiality guide the work. So even if you know, the peer note taker will not know. Sometimes you might not know yourself, right? But generally, or maybe you have the accommodation letter at home and top of mind, you don't know, that's okay, right? Sometimes there's a peer note taker, there's one in the class for multiple people in the class as well. But ultimately it's a win-win-win. A lot of times for me, in order to help support the recruitment of a peer note taker, I offered extra credit. And I even encourage folks to find an alternate peer note taker. So if someone was sick or out or just had questions or said, oh man, I left for those 10 minutes because something was going on with me, and what happened during those 10 minutes having a backup peer note taker or somebody who's kind of assisting in the process can be really beneficial. And that's been something that I've supported in my classes as well, right? But every single instructor navigates that part different according to his or her or their preferences about how they teach. So from there, we train the note taker. We help to indicate to them a little bit about what good notes are, knowing that not everyone comes into a university setting being an expert note taker already. And then at the end of each class, the volunteer note taker actually uploads their notes to a system that then in turn delivers them to the student who's accommodated with notes, or students accommodated with notes. So you as faculty, you don't have to provide the notes. You don't have to collect the notes. You don't need to distribute the notes. You don't need to do anything with that. The area where we need the biggest help is just making sure that there is a volunteer note taker, and that, let's say something changes or is different. Let's say the volunteer note taker drops out of the class, we might need to recruit again. So sometimes it's just that positive spirit of collaboration goes a long ways in this process. But we're really efficient at it, and we're really respectful of your time and the class's time as well. Now, a question I get a lot is, what happens if it's an online class? And what happens if it's an online synchronous class? And what happens if it's an online asynchronous class? So if it's an online synchronous class, we might recruit through your Zoom link. So we might email you or the accommodated student and say, hey, could we join your class for a hot second to ask if we could recruit a note taker? We may recruit through, again, the registrar roster list. We may reach out to you and say, we're having trouble finding your Zoom link. Would you be willing to share with us the Zoom link or the syllabus for your class, so that way we could collaborate in partnership with you to recruit a note taker for your online class? With an online asynchronous class, sometimes professors already record and transcribe their recorded lectures. So sometimes what professors do is say, hey, if I provide that, is that enough? The answer is maybe, but that's a conversation, right? So if you have an online asynchronous class, respond back to your accommodation letter with the details that you feel like would be relevant, right? Say, okay, so this is an online asynchronous class, and here's what I do and what I provide students already. And we would love to engage in that dialogue with you. So I've done my best to anticipate a couple different kinds of class situation. There are always about 1,000,001 other kinds of class situations, right? You might have an active learning class or a theater class or a class in a foreign language, or something that doesn't have any notes in your estimation, or something that's a very sensitive topic, where you're holding a very safe space, right? And I've engaged in a lot of these conversations as well. So we can work with what's happening with you, right? There are always times where pens and pencils and paper get put away in class, right? And our note takers know that if the instructor says, this is not a time for notes, or this isn't going to be something related to your class later on, they stop taking notes at that point to honor that privacy as well. You could always help them out by telling them when the instructional part starts again. But we're here to support that process and here to support your best way of being an instructor to your students regarding your course content. So I really look forward to engaging with you more regarding this or any topic as you see fit. That's it for now. If you have any other questions, email me anytime at jessica.nerren@csusb.edu. Thank you.